All right, then I think we are good to go. So last keynote of the event today. I hope everybody's had a good time here. I just got a little while ago, but we're one of the co-hosts of this event alongside Citrea. We've been a part of the Bitcoin space for a little while now. For the past really like 7 to 8 months, we've been really focused on Bitcoin layer 2 specifically and kind of the scalability, especially on the UX level of Bitcoin layer 2s and how this is actually used within the ecosystem. So what I want to talk about today is essentially what I believe to be the two biggest problems, or really you can kind of break it down to the one biggest problem with the Bitcoin layer 2 ecosystem today, which is fragmentation. And now fragmentation exists across all of Web3. This is not a problem that's isolated to Bitcoin layer 2s, but it's actually especially true with Bitcoin layer 2s. So I'm going to talk about basically what fragmentation looks like in the case of Bitcoin and how it materializes, and of course how we can actually address it at an ecosystem level and at a tooling level. But as a quick intro, my name is Tabasco. My real name is Ethan. I lead developer relations at Particle Network. And the kind of TLDR of what we do solutions around kind of user experience and solving a lot of the core UX problems in Web3. At the moment, our core product is called Universal Accounts, which essentially allows users to have one balance, one kind of wallet that they can use across the entire ecosystem. So you can imagine using MetaMask with balance from Arbitrum and Base to do a transaction on Polygon. This is what is enabled through Universal Accounts. So I'm going to talk about basically two problems. The first being fragmented user experience and kind of the issue of fragmented tooling across especially Bitcoin and Bitcoin layer 2s. Then I'm going to talk about fragmented account state, so fragmented liquidity across Bitcoin and Bitcoin layer 2s. But first, before I kind of dive into the problems and kind of the negativity of the ecosystem, I want to highlight how quickly the Bitcoin ecosystem has been growing in 2024. I think even these numbers are outdated. I actually wrote the slide for an event out in Hong Kong a few months ago. I think we're at like 200 Bitcoin layer 2s at this point. But at that time, we were at 70 plus Bitcoin layer 2s, and this whole idea of scaling Bitcoin through the means of layer 2s has really caught on this year. It's kind of had explosive growth. We've now reached, I think it's been far more than just 5 billion in TVL. And far more than just 5,000 monthly active developers. And I have many applications in Bitcoin layer 2s that are here on the screen. So the Bitcoin layer 2 space has been growing really quickly, and for good reason, because we realized that Bitcoin is kind of like a nascent problem space that we can actually attack and kind of be almost kind of adjacent to Ethereum in terms of its own ecosystem, its own kind of DeFi applications, its own user base. Right, so this is why we've kind of seen this emergence, this explosion of Bitcoin layer 2s and applications made for the Bitcoin ecosystem. But of course, with the introduction of 150 Bitcoin layer 2s at this point, there's some pretty big issues of fragmentation. And this is true across, like I mentioned, the entire space. So whenever I'm interacting across Polygon and Base and Ethereum, whatever it may be, there's fragmentation there. I have a different balance across each chain. I have different account state. But when you're looking at the Bitcoin layer 2 ecosystem, fragmentation is actually especially a large issue. This is because whenever you're looking at the Bitcoin ecosystem, essentially, Bitcoin layer 2s are built to extend and sort of be a user-facing platform for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of the base layer of the Bitcoin ecosystem. So naturally, you have Bitcoin users that then go to Bitcoin layer 2s and are expected to interact with these Bitcoin layer 2s. But the issue is that for Bitcoin users, if they want to use any Bitcoin layer 2, they have to use totally different tooling. They can't use the same wallets. They can't use Unisat or Xverse or OKX. They have to use things like Wallet Connect wallets or MetaMask or Phantom, stuff like this to interact with the EVM ecosystem, the Bitcoin layer 2 ecosystem. This is a problem because it means that Bitcoin and the Bitcoin layer 2 ecosystem are actually inherently isolated from one another. So there is no parity here on the tooling level between the two ecosystems. I have my wallets for Bitcoin and I have my wallets for EVM. And there's no shared responsibility here between the wallets. I can't, as a user, use my Unisat wallet on Bitcoin layer 2s, and this is a problem because it means that we can't take users directly from Bitcoin to these Bitcoin layer 2s without introducing a pretty large component of fragmentation in the process. And as a result, this kind of materializes as friction for the end user. It's confusing for them, and this is a problem that we want to avoid, right? So this isn't true for the EVM ecosystem itself. I can use MetaMask for every EVM chain, and even Solana today. Right, so this isn't a problem for most chains, but for Bitcoin it's a problem because there's no consistency here for end users, which is limiting for the growth of Bitcoin layer 2s, and it means that Bitcoin layer 2s on a tooling level are inherently isolated from Bitcoin itself. So this begs the question: how much of a layer 2 are these chains if I can't even use the same wallets on these chains? So at Particle, as some quick context, we've built a solution over the past 6 months called BTC Connect. BTC Connect essentially aims to solve this problem to some degree, and at a very simple level, it allows you to take your Bitcoin wallet, like Unisat or Xverse and so on, that you're already using on native Bitcoin and use it for a Bitcoin layer 2. So I can take my Unisat wallet that I've been using for a year on Bitcoin, and I can take this and go use it on Citrea or Bob or Merlin or whatever it may be. I don't have to actually download MetaMask. I can use the wallets I'm already familiar with directly on Bitcoin layer 2s. And the way that we do this is sort of complicated. I won't go through all the details here, just for the sake of getting too granular, but essentially we use account abstraction on these Bitcoin layer 2s to sort of allow for some tricks that enable you to sign transactions using your Bitcoin account. So as this materializes, it just means as a user, this whole issue of isolation between the chains, between Bitcoin itself and between Bitcoin layer 2s, is effectively removed, and now we actually have some degree of parity between the tooling on Bitcoin and Bitcoin layer 2. So I can actually use the same wallet on Bitcoin on these layer 2s now. So this is a pretty big innovation in the ecosystem, which turns essentially this experience, which what I have visualized here is users, they interact with the Bitcoin layer 2 ecosystem through their Web3 EVM wallets, but they can't do so through their typical Bitcoin wallets. So this experience then turns into this experience, which is pretty powerful for end users. It's a small change, but it means that now as a user, I still have the option, of course, of going to these Bitcoin layer 2s using my EVM account or my EVM wallet, but I can still do so now with my Unisat wallet or my whatever native Bitcoin wallet I'm using. So this changes the dynamic for Bitcoin layer 2s. It means that now the ecosystem is no longer isolated from one another. So my Bitcoin layer 2s are actually inherently connected to Bitcoin itself through the tooling. So this is an important component for user experience because it means that users have a much more consistent experience within these applications. They can use whatever wallet that they want. There's no elimination of opportunity and choice here based on the differences between ecosystems. So this is the first problem. The first problem was the issue of fragmented UX, fragmented tooling, which is simply defined as the issue of not being able to use your native Bitcoin wallet on Bitcoin layer 2s. This is solved through BTC Connect. That's what we're building on Particle. The second problem is a larger problem. This is a problem that's much harder to solve. And this is actually a problem that, as an ecosystem, we're all tackling right now. If you guys have heard of the term chain abstraction or aggregation or anything like this, these are all ideas that are trying to solve this problem of fragmented liquidity in account state. So as a user, I have my balance on Base or Polygon or Citrea or whatever it may be, Bob. This balance, even on Bitcoin, this is isolated on each chain. So each individual blockchain that I use has its own balance state. And if I want to move between these blockchains, I have to bridge, right? So we're asking a lot from end users. Users need to manage their balance on every blockchain that they use, which, as I mentioned a moment ago, we have like 200 Bitcoin layer 2s. So if these have any usage, then this is a pretty big problem for users. And I need to bridge across these chains if I actually want to get any usage of these funds across these different ecosystems. So this is probably the largest UX problem and kind of like just general inefficiency in Web3 at the moment, which is the issue of fragmented liquidity. So this can be really represented in this kind of like difference in experience. So right now, if you want to use Web3, including the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin layer 2 space, this is how it currently looks. Right? So I have multiple different assets across multiple different wallets, across multiple different chains, using multiple different bridges, isolated between different applications. I have to kind of navigate all of these, figure out what combination of wallets, bridges, chains, et cetera, I want to use to actually reach my goal. Then I get my goal. The future that we're kind of going towards with chain abstraction and just generally this kind of idea of aggregation and unification is that simply I just have my assets, I have the applications that I'm using, I have my goal. So users in this future, they don't need a bridge anymore. They don't need to manage their funds across different chains. They just have their balance and they use it wherever they want. So I could have my Bitcoin balance. I could have BTC on Bitcoin, use it to pay for a transaction on Polygon or on Bob or on Merlin. I could have tokens on Merlin chain, use it to pay for a transaction on Polygon. There's no distinction here for end users. All they know is that I have these tokens, I have this wallet, and I want to use it on these dApps. And that's it. We actually remove the notion of distinct chains from these users. This is kind of the big idea and the kind of solution to this problem that we're trying to move towards as an ecosystem. So to kind of visualize this a little bit more, whenever you look at, for example, smart contract wallets, which is what we use at Particle, between Bitcoin layer 2s, you get this problem of whenever you're using a smart contract wallet, these are contracts. So there's kind of two distinct problems here to understand. Whenever you're using a smart contract wallet across Bitcoin layer 2s, if I update a contract or if I deploy a contract wallet, then let's say I deploy smart contract wallets on Bitcoin, Merlin, Citrea, and Base, and I'm using wallets throughout all these chains. And I update my wallet on Merlin. I add a module or I add a signer or I change something about the wallet that actually changes the state on chain. All of a sudden this wallet is different from all these other chains. So if I change, for example, the signer of my wallet or a module on the wallet, it's totally different from the wallet that I have on Citrea and Base and any other chain. And furthermore, my balance on each of these chains is different. So I have balance A on Bitcoin, I have balance B on Merlin, balance C on Citrea, balance D on Base. This is a problem, and this kind of goes back to the fragmentation problem that I was mentioning a moment ago. And I'll get back around to the slide in a little bit in terms of how we can solve this. So this is like going back to the graphic that I showed you a moment ago in terms of like the fragmentation of tooling. Now we're adding in the second component of fragmented liquidity, right? So we have this problem in the ecosystem. We've solved the fragmentation of tooling. Okay, users can use their Bitcoin wallet. They can use whatever wallet that they want across Bitcoin and across EVM chains. That's great. But now we have the second issue. So Bitcoin has its balance. I have all these balances across Bitcoin layer 2s. Moving between these chains is a pain. And we're asking a lot cognitively from end users to do all this, right? So this is kind of how this problem looks in this type of graphic. So this kind of gets into, again, we've solved the UX problem, we have unified UX, but we still have this fragmented liquidity and account state. So how do you solve this? How does it actually result in a better Web3? How do we fix this at a tooling level? So this is kind of like the second product that we're building at Particle Network. And we've, here at ECC, been pushing this idea of chain abstraction a lot. You might have heard of it a little bit. This is one of the big narratives going on in the space at the moment, which is like, users shouldn't be aware of the chains that they're using. They should have essentially one balance, one account that they can use across the entire ecosystem. So we're building this. We have this technology called universal accounts, which essentially allows exactly this. You can use your MetaMask account or your Unisat wallet, or whatever it may be, across any blockchain. And you can have one balance that you can use across these blockchains. So if I have 10 USDC from Arbitrum, 10 USDC from Merlin, 10 USDC from Solana, I have 30 USDC and I can use it anywhere. There's no distinction between chains to end users. So this is really important. This is kind of what we're building at Particle Network with universal accounts. So this is kind of how it materializes in terms of a visual. So I connect to a dApp with any wallet I want. I can even use social logins like email or Google. I go to this dApp, I have my balance. My balance is consolidated across Ethereum, Solana, Bitcoin, Merlin, Citrea, whatever else it may be. There's no fragmentation across these chains with my balance. It's all just unified within this one account. Then I can use this across anywhere. There's no bridging needed, there's no management of these funds needed. So this is kind of how universal accounts materialize, and this is how we're addressing this fragmentation issue that's kind of so prevalent within the ecosystem. So this is what we have. This is the current issue. Solve the tooling, solve the fragmentation. So how does this look in the future? This is kind of like the direction that we're going in now. So you have the tooling fixed, and then now with universal accounts and similar solutions that are being built in the space, you have the liquidity fragmentation issue fixed. This is where I simply have my balance in my account that's the same across Bitcoin and across Bitcoin layer 2s. There's zero distinction here. So you can imagine this future where as a user, let's say I want to use Unisat, right? I have my Unisat wallet. I go to Bob, I do a swap or whatever with my Unisat wallet. I have USDC. I take that USDC that I just swapped on Bob. I go to an application on Citrea, and I buy an NFT. I take this NFT. I go take a loan out on this NFT on Solana, all using my Unisat wallet. I never switch wallets in this case. I take my loan on Solana. I use it to pay for a transaction on Rootstock. And this is all still using my Unisat wallet, all of this without bridging, without really even knowing that I'm interacting across these chains. I'm just using applications. This is the future that we're going towards, and this is really the solution that this graphic represents. This is what we're building at Particle Network, kind of the solution to these two problems. Right now, the Bitcoin layer 2 ecosystem, really the larger Web3 ecosystem, is plagued by fragmentation. Fragmentation at the UX level and fragmentation at the liquidity level. We're solving both these problems, one with BTC Connect, which developers can already use and implement at the SDK level within their application. You can onboard users through their Unisat wallet or OKX, Express, et cetera. And we're solving this with universal accounts at the liquidity level, giving users one account and one balance usable across the entire ecosystem. So you can follow us on Twitter at ParticleNTWRK and go to our website, particle.network, to learn a little bit more. We're here at ECC, all the chain abstraction events, you can find us out there. And yeah, thank you guys.